underserved. Mental health is one of the major underserved market that we'll be addressing and we've been addressing most of the last 5 years. I'm specifically very interested in using the technology and engagement, community engagement and education to improve the healthcare of the millions of people who are either homeless or they're in jail or they're killing themselves. So with that, I want to introduce our next big speaker, Victoria Maxwell. She's the CEO of Crazy for Life company. She was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, anxiety, and depression at the age of 25. She tried to kind of avoid that problem. She thought she was not sick or whatever, but after 4 years of struggle, she kind of decided to improve her situation. And she, with the help of the community and our parents and a good doctor, she basically turned around her life. Now she talks about the stigma and the problem that exists with mental patients. She's a frequent speaker in conferences. She gives workshops and speeches everywhere. Guess what I met? I was watching CNN, Sanjay Gupta one day, and there she was. She was interviewed by Sanjay Gupta of CNN, and immediately I looked her up and called her, and in a couple of months we've been talking, and I won't give up until she came here, so I brought her here. So she's also appeared on New York Times, Wall Street Journal. Let's welcome Victoria Maxwell.
I am really excited and humbled to be here. I am not a technology specialist, so I feel like my eyes have been open to what all these designers do. I have a friend who's got a partner who's a designer, and now I have a little bit of an idea of the kinds of things and thinking and all the acronyms. I was talking to someone, and I went to one of these lightning workshops, and I understood about 1 out of 4 words when it came to all the acronyms, but that was okay. I got the gist of it. So just to give you a little background, I don't know if when Prannoy said it, my background is in acting. And so when I started talking about my illness, I did it in the form that I knew best, which was writing and acting. So I created some solo shows. So that's how I started just beginning to start conversations. Oftentimes, the reason I wanted to do this was because I felt very alone in my journey. So tonight, what I want to do is invite you into the world that I was living when I was first diagnosed. And then what I want to do is offer a vision for those who are still reeling from the effects of mental illness. And if you choose, for you to come on board and maybe be part of the solution. And before I start anything, I want to sort of give a thanks. I'm standing here today, which I wasn't for many years, because of people like yourselves. You may not work in mental health directly, but you are people who are passionate about helping other people. You're passionate about health and technology and getting the end consumer to be able to use it in a way that affects their life. If you ever doubt that you are making a difference, you are making a difference. I wouldn't be standing here if I wasn't able to take advantage of some of the tools that you've offered. So first, I wanted to say thank you. So mental illness is common. How many of you are sort of work in the mental health field? I assume it's very few. Oh, there are few. Try, cool. So it's common. Some of you will know this information. It affects about 1 in 4, 1 in 5, and that means that there are about 60 million Americans in any given year that are experiencing a mental illness. That means 450 million people worldwide. And I am one of those people. I was diagnosed with what's called bipolar I disorder, it used to be called manic depression, with psychotic features, generalized anxiety disorder, and disordered eating. And I was diagnosed over 25 years ago, but I've been living well with it for about 10. And there are two key reasons why I've flourished. And these two particulars are often what people that are diagnosed with severe mental illness do not have. So I'm not only one of four, I am also extremely lucky. I had help from the people around me, the communities. We heard in that early morning panel about community engagement, social determinants. I had people around me, I had a situation around me that allowed me to move through the stigma that prevented me and that I was grappling with as I was diagnosed. And I had access to affordable therapy and medication. Most people don't. The vast majority of people don't. And this is the problem I want you to help me with. So Mental Illness 101. Some of you, like I said, will be familiar with this. It's an umbrella term for the things that we know. Anxiety disorder, obsessive compulsive disorder, schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, substance abuse, ADHD, the list goes on. Schizophrenia, those are the sort of what I call the heavy hitters. They can range from mild to severe. Mine happen to be quite severe. They are all characterized by changes in mood and behavior, energy patterns, thought patterns, and they're considered clinical. And this is important because we throw around the word depressed a lot. They're considered clinical when it interferes significantly with a person's daily function. So this isn't about just having a few bad days in a row. This is about having endless days in a row where you're unable to function well. So just to give you a little bit of insight, I'm going to read some excerpts from a couple of my solo shows. I use a lot of humor, so feel free to laugh if you wish to. I mean, I call myself the bipolar princess for a particular reason, so just go ahead. And so this is from my first show, Crazy for Life, and this is describing my depression. The second excerpt will be about my psychosis. So as soon as I came home from the psych ward, I chose to go au naturel. Oh my God. No medication, no psychiatrist, no telling what would happen. Depression. That's what happens. What I fear and respect most. It seeps deep into my bloodstream. I recognize it immediately. I anxiously tread above its current, but eventually I relent and surrender to its undertow. Exhausted. No apparent reason for the beast's presence. No lost love, no lost job, no dwindled savings, just a hovering blackbird circling my movements, permeating my entire existence. Depression. Not the blues, not in the dumps, not down, not self-pity. A physical sensation. Wet laundry soaked in my chest, pain in my joints, a haze of fatigue and an absolute hopelessness. Infinite and immovable. Relentless, relentless. I hate myself, I'm worthless, I'm nothing, you're useless, you're crap, you're dead. I hate myself, I'm worthless, I'm useless, I'm nothing, you're crap, you're dead. Hope, a four-letter word. My mother, my father, boyfriend, and friends all listened tenderly to me at first. Then over time and fatigue, I saw them stiffen as I talked. No one wants to admit it, but there is only so much listening, so much support a person can give. Depression has a cutthroat way of dismantling empathy, and I was painfully aware of this. Over the next few days, I talked to no one. Not to my boyfriend, not to my parents. I'm dangerously silent, dangerously despondent. And worse, I don't care. I lie in bed for days on end, getting up only to go pee or order pizza. The effort to shower is too much. Answering the phone is too painful. I look at my cell phone trying to get the courage to call someone. My hair stringy, clothes stale, half-empty coffee cups decorate the windowsill, and Kit Kat wrappers litter the floor. Darker and darker thoughts pour into my mind. Days bleed into weeks, passing into one endless suicidal fantasy. But perhaps it's my insatiable curiosity or my natural fierceness that prompts me to take one last shot at hope before the Big Bang, so to speak. I'll talk to someone, just to say goodbye. I get the name of this counselor. So with that name of that counselor, it interrupted my suicidal ideation, and she was someone that I was able to reach out to and ask for help. And many people aren't that fortunate. And this is a short excerpt of psychosis. So psychosis, we usually hear psychosis, we usually hear people say, oh, he's psycho, and it's usually associated with violence. It's not necessarily always correlated with violence. For me, I was in manic florid psychosis, which meant I was very euphoric. Seeing things, hearing things, thinking things that weren't there. More or less, my reality is different than your reality. So what we all agree on as consensual reality, I wasn't experiencing, which is often why it's very difficult to talk rationally to someone, because you're trying to convince them of something that's so real to them that they know that what you're saying is not true. So this was one of my experiences. I had about 4. I'm running like an exploding jack-in-the-box, up West 10th, past Safeway, past Starbucks, turn to my left, running. 12th and Trimble, running west of a fire hall, running, I'm running, I'm running, I'm running. Naked, I'm naked. I'm not taking my meds, obviously, but I am still seeing a shrink. I've moved off the couch of binging on Cheetos and Pop-Tarts, kind of suicidal depression, and I'm now once again in a state of euphoric manic psychosis, riffing on this looking for God thing. I've discovered that not taking medication is a surefire way to catapult into the up and down chaos of bipolar disorder. I am definitely on an upswing. I run past the fire hall. If there isn't an emergency, there sure as hell should be. I guess you could say I was the best siren there. See, I think taking off my dress is a good way to meet the beloved, God. You know, that purity of body kind of thing. I don't get that naked doesn't always mean pure. The fire guys, though, they must have been on their afternoon naps. Because nothing, nada, not one firefighter calendar pinup boy to the rescue. They're sleeping, that's what I tell myself, otherwise my rather fragile, positive body image will categorically collapse. I think God purposely put me in a snobby zip code to, shake up the neighborhood. I was doing something definitely demographically unacceptable. Not really a clothing optional street, if you know what I mean. So, I'm bouncing my way down the street, well, parts of me are, hoping to meet the divine. I'm more or less playing hide and seek with God. I'm alive, euphoric, like I haven't been in months, and all this, the world around me, seems like nothing. Not apathetic nothing, but more like it's all a dream nothing. Colors blur by, green leaves, bright sun, hard concrete, cars slow down, and then speed up. Then something in the bushes, so simple, so divine, and within minutes, the police show up. Then the ambulance. The gig definitely up. I'm now sitting in the ambulance, hunched over, poking at all the gadgets, and 2 paramedics look at me with actually very compassionate eyes. What's your name? Do you know where you live? How old are you? I answer, 10 out of 10. Gold star. I'm pumped. Then, have you taken any ecstasy today? No. Have you had any alcohol today? No. Have you had any drugs today? No, I say, unless you call love a drug. So, someone with a severe mental illness is 10 to 20 years shorter than the general population. And that's in North America. And it can be fatal. According to CDC, one person every 12 minutes dies by suicide in the US. That means 2 people at the end of this talk will have taken their lives. And another one will have done the same 6 minutes later. The good news is we have treatment for many of these illnesses. Not perfect treatment, but we have often very effective treatment. And usually, and this applies to me, it includes medication. I take a clutch of pills morning and night, and counseling, psychotherapy, talk therapy. Other tools for me in particular are the behavioral changes. In the last session here, we were talking about behavioral change. It's as much part of my recovery as the medication and counseling. Exercise, sleeping, eating right, spirituality, meditation, community support, social engagement. And the evidence that we have is that the combination of medication, when necessary, combined with therapy, offers the best chance for the best outcomes. This is according to SAMHSA, Mayo Clinic, National Institute of Mental Health. So I'm not just pulling this out of my hat. So what kind of therapy do we have to combine with medication? We have, in terms of new models, we have text counseling, which I hadn't really heard about until recently, where people, if they've got a grasp of the English language, will be texting. But there are barriers. People aren't necessarily fluent. We have teletherapy, clinics, hospitals, we have outpatient groups. There are barriers, though, and I will describe 2. There are more than 2, but these are the most pressing to address. Stigma, which extend into prejudice and discrimination, and affordability of therapy that I just talked about. These are challenges that you're likely familiar with, and probably especially the feasibility piece. Stigma. SAMHSA's 2014 survey found that 35% of people who needed mental health treatment didn't seek it because of various forms of stigma. So even when I got diagnosed, it took 5 years for me to accept that I had an illness. And in that time, I went in and out of the hospital. And it was due, in large part, because of the stigma surrounding mental illness and the stigma surrounding psychiatric medication. I only have, do I have more than 5 minutes? I didn't know. A little bit? No? Okay. I'm just going to go further ahead here. So I'm just going to give you one really quick excerpt about some of the stigma that I faced. And I think all of us, there's something about medication in particular. I wish I could say we're further ahead than we are with the whole stigma thing, but we're not. And the media doesn't help us much now, does it, to decrease stigma. The newspapers are always splashing some headline like, schizophrenic man attacks police. They never splash the headline, diabetic man attacks police. Lactose intolerant teen kills family. I know, there are holes in my argument, but still, the fact still remains. If it bleeds, it leads. And if it bleeds with a mental illness, well, so much the better. So this was just the beginning. There are a lot of fears that we have about disclosing mental illness and about being labeled with it. So oftentimes people don't even go because they don't want to be labeled with it. The second barrier is accessibility to affordable care, particularly psychotherapy, like talk therapy. We have evidence that therapy and medication in combination provides the best chance for a good outcome, and it did for me. But therapy is inaccessible and unaffordable for most people. So most people with a psychiatric illness are often only given a partial treatment, which is medication. And even then, people can't afford it. SAMHSA reported that a full 50% of people in the States who needed mental health treatment said they couldn't afford it, that the treatment costs were too high. And this is both insured and uninsured. And this is also in the developing countries. In the developed countries. In developing countries, it's far worse. So individuals with psychiatric condition only get partial treatment. case with cancer, say. So we have two therapies that are known to increase survival and quality of life: chemotherapy, surgery. But we knowingly only offer one. And because of this conscious decision, people die. So your sister with ovarian cancer, my father with lung cancer, your daughter with leukemia, there would be public outrage. Individuals with psychiatric conditions only get part of what we know is effective treatment, if any effective treatment at all. So what's the difference about mental illness and cancer? Nothing, except that we talk openly now about cancer. We have 10K runs for cancer, for breast cancer, for our private parts. We talk about prostate cancer, but we don't talk about the brain disorders, the mental illness. And I mean, I have a condition that affects one of the most complex conditions, that affects one of the most complex organs of my body, the brain, which is pretty freaking cool, but, well, sort of. Anyway, okay, so, I mean, if I had to have anything, right? I mean, like, pancreas, diabetes, brain, yes, okay. That's gonna take intelligence, I don't know, maybe not. Okay, anyway, so why is it the case with mental illness? Okay, we don't talk about psychiatric conditions. It's not necessarily coffee table, party talk, anything like that. And what we also do is we often don't see that mental illness, if not properly treated, can be terminal. There's a disconnect, particularly between clinical depression and death. And we think because mental illness isn't talked about, we don't know who's affected, and we think it happens to other people. It doesn't. I know for a fact that there are people in this room who have dealt with mental illness, whether it's experiencing themselves or supporting a loved one, a friend, or a couple. So what can we do? This is my vision. And because I'm not a technology specialist or health provider, that's why I need your help. There are already models of innovative health technology for therapy. We have the text counseling, but there are significant risks for people with severe mental illness when they use it. We have doctor and psychiatrist video appointments, but the cost is still prohibitive for most, even with coverage. We have free clinics, like the one you'll hear about tomorrow night in the closing keynote, but they are rare. So my vision: every family who has a loved one with a psychiatric condition, every person who has a living with a mental illness will have timely, affordable, and accessible therapy that is combined with medication, if medication is needed. And this is where you come in. We need health technology models developed that combines the personal connection that face-to-face appointments and teletherapy provide with the affordability of text counseling. I don't have the answer, but I know there is one. So my call to action, the gauntlet, throwing down, so to speak, from Orion, the bipolar princess. So I need all of you knights, warrior princesses to come forth, sort of any Game of Thrones fans. Khaleesi, right? Like you saw Khaleesi, right? 80,000 people, okay. Right, oh, to have hair like hers. Or at least one of those things like hers. Anyway, okay, so when you leave this room, start one conversation with mental illness, about mental illness, outside of these walls, outside of this event. We don't need to talk to the choir, we need to go outside of it. Discuss what you're curious about, what you believe mental illness is, if something's changed perhaps about what I've said, about your stories, your loved ones. Talk to your family about this. Talk about your family's mental health history. Find one person who is passionate about mental illness and recovery and collaborate with them. Enlist the wisdom of someone who has lived experience in your discussions, and this is the big one, the David-Goliath dilemma. Discover, create, implement affordable therapy technology that rivals the effectiveness of in-person appointments, surpasses the risks inherent in text therapy, but matches its financial accessibility. Easy, right? Piece of cake. So even if you take only one action of these, you will be doing a great service. I know. I am well and flourishing because I am standing on the shoulders of people just like you. People who are passionate about health and committed to creating wellness for those who face barriers. I don't have a solution, but I do have the knowledge of suffering and the experience of recovery from mental illness. I have the experience of recovery because, among other things, I had access to medication, but more importantly, I had access to affordable